Hi, we're going to be talking about today on City Corner, getting out the vote in St. Louis. How important is it, and how is St. Louis going to do it? Come on back. Hello, welcome to City Corner. I'm Robin Boyce. In the studios with me today to talk about voting and how important it is to keep the vote intact, make sure that people are able to vote, are really some great people who represent the St. Louis Board of Elections Commission. That is Gary Stoff, who is the St. Louis Republican Director. Also with us is Stephen Capizzi. Did I pronounce that right, Stephen?
You did.
All right, and he is the St. Louis Democratic Director for the St. Louis Election Board Commission, and that's St. Louis City.
Correct.
St. Louis City. County has a different department as well, and they break it down. Do you all collaborate, for elections when they come up, especially like the presidentials, to make sure things are fine? Or is that a need to do something like that, the county and the city?
Well, we communicate with each other, but we are separate entities. We run our own elections, but they're an election authority like we're an election authority. It's nice to touch base and
yes,
talk about best
find
practice.
out what's going on. Well, one of the big questions that we have since the past 2016 election, presidential election, people have been consistently, and the information that's come out with reference to the Russians infiltrating different states and different communities with reference to how prepared is St. Louis to make sure that our voters are going to get their votes counted?
Well, in the city of St. Louis, we feel very confident because our machines are not connected to the internet.
Okay.
Neither the voting machine itself, which is at the polling place, nor the central computer. So the point is that you can't hack into those. And so we feel very secure. We're constantly working with other jurisdictions and the Secretary of State's office to look for ways to improve security. But at least from that standpoint, we feel very good about that.
Secretary of State of Missouri.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
Making sure everything is going well. So you're not connected to the internet then?
We are not, no.
So there won't be any infiltration then. So how could, for example, Stephen, did the Russians get in? Was it basically internet through the social media, changing people's minds, or how did that happen?
Well, we've received information that no part of the voting process itself was hacked in any way. There might have been some influences through social media, but that's completely outside of our purview at the election board. We can assure the public that there was no effect on any of the actual ballots cast or the voting itself on that election day. Okay,
great. Please tell us, what does the Board of Elections Commission do? You're set up as a board, and how many people do you have on that board?
So the election board is a creature of state statute.
Okay.
And by the state statute, there are 4 commissioners, 2 Republican, 2 Democrat.
Okay.
The chairperson is always of the same party as the governor. The secretary is the other party, and then there are 2 more members, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. Every employee, every position at our board is a bipartisan position in the sense that I'm the Republican director, I have a Democrat counterpart.
Yes.
So if there's a deputy director, which there's a Republican and a Democrat, and that's also important to know for the voting standpoint, because the folks who prepare the ballot, the folks who recruit the judges, the folks who train the judges, the roving deputies who circulate during the day, it is always a bipartisan team, Republican, Democrat. So when folks think in terms of could there be some collusion or some hacking, at a minimum, it would take 2 people of a different party to be colluding in some respect, and that just has not happened.
Great. So St. Louis City's elections by far have been fine. There haven't been any real issues. Probably, I guess maybe a few years back, there was an issue with folks being able to get in and vote. And it's so because of long lines and what have you. But you all got out right away and corrected those situations and had explanation to what went on. What's important for people to know before voting? First off, they need to register.
I was just going to mention that the first things first, and we need to get people to register to vote.
Right.
Registration is open every day that we're open. It's also available at many of the libraries around the city of St. Louis. You can also get a voter registration online through the Secretary of State's website. You can also mail in your registration. We deal with registrations year-round. There are deadlines before certain elections of when you can vote. It's 4 weeks before the election generally. But you can register to vote pretty much at any time during normal business hours with us.
Now, when it says same-day voting in other states, does that mean that you can register and vote on the same day?
It does in those states. Now,
in those states, yeah.
We don't have that in Missouri.
Right, I know.
So the deadline is the fourth Wednesday before the election. That's why it's important for people, even if they're looking ahead to 2020, don't wait to 2020 to register. Register now.
Right.
And like Steve said, there are places you can go. You can come to our office. You can do it online. You can download off the Secretary of State's website. But do that early. And then if you have any question about, am I registered or where do I vote? You can go on our website and you can verify that, in fact, you are registered, and here's where you go to vote, because on election day, to vote, you have to be in the right polling place.
A lot of people who voted, I'd say 2016 or before that, probably don't and have moved, don't realize that they need to change those addresses so that they're at the correct precinct to vote. I mean, the biggest thing that breaks my heart is for folks to call me the day after and say, where am I supposed to go register? Really?
Right.
I mean, it's so important for people to really understand these deadlines. For example, for this year, if it's a November 5th election, and this is going to be from looking at your website for the 78th Legislative District Special Election, people have to at least vote absentee by September 24th, 2019, or the voting begins. The absentee voting begins, right?
Absentee voting starts the end of September.
Okay.
But the deadline to register would be that fourth Wednesday before. Someone can request an absentee ballot by mail up to the second Wednesday before, but they can vote in person at the election board even the day before up until 5 o'clock.
Now, the Election Board Commission's address is right there at the corner of Olive and Tucker.
It's technically 300 North Tucker, but
300 North Tucker. You guys, it used to be further up the street.
Yes, we did.
Many moons ago, I used to spend some time down there as a rookie reporter covering those elections all night long, okay? But now things are a lot more sophisticated. Okay, absentee voting, how important is that for people to remember? You can vote if you're not going to be there, so you can vote ahead of time. So how important is that?
Sure, there's actually 7 different ways you can vote absentee. The most common reason people vote absentee is because they're not in the jurisdiction.
Right.
So the easiest way to do that, again, is...
But they're registered at that address that they can vote from. Okay.
Correct. And the easiest process for that is to get online, and you can print your application to vote absentee and then mail it to us. Or as starting our last election, you can email us that application and we can get you the ballot that you requested. So
you can get the application email, get application online, download it and sign off on it and send it in. Also for young people, say for example, who are going off to the service, going overseas or going in for training, and they're really very, very much into what's going on in their community and they want to vote, can they vote absentee as well?
Absolutely.
So those young soldiers.
There's a military portal.
Okay.
And so we send out notices to service people who are registered that we know are overseas.
Okay, so you do send out notices to those folks, that are registered voters in the city of St. Louis.
Yes. And the other thing it's important, I think, for folks to keep in mind, especially those who maybe are elderly, kind of confined to their home, a disability, they can request to be placed on a list that we maintain, as do other election authorities. And so for every election after that, we automatically notify them that an election is coming up. We provide them with an absentee ballot application plus a return envelope so they can do all that through the mail. Now, they don't have to if they were sick for a while. But once they're on that list, unless they tell us to take them off, we will automatically notify them of an election and send them an absentee ballot application, which they still have to send in.
They have to still send that in so they can be counted, right?
Well, before we send them the ballot.
Gotcha, yeah.
But we provide the mechanism so they can do it all.
So there are really no excuses. You can get registered. You can vote. You can make sure that everything's okay before that election or on that election day.
Yes.
Becoming a poll worker, how does that work?
So we're always looking for poll workers.
Okay.
We do that through a variety of different ways. We get a lot of people who show up to polling places who inquire about it, so we have information at your polling place.
Okay.
Or you can call us or get on our website. We have information on there as well. We have two supervisors that their sole purpose at their job is to recruit people and train people to become poll workers. So if anyone is interested in becoming a poll worker, please contact us via phone or on the internet or an email or through one of our brochures.
Now, what would that poll worker do? What is their job at that precinct when they're there on election day?
So we have a variety of different jobs that we use on election day. The most common one is the poll worker who talks to the voter, gets some kind of identification, hopefully from the voter to
Okay,
vote.
those folks who are sitting there when I come in the little cafeteria. Okay, those are, all right.
Again, it's good to note here that we always have a bipartisan team do that, which means we have a Republican and a Democrat sitting together to check each other's work.
Because they always ask, are you Republican or Democrat? Or which ballot do you want or what do you want to vote? So they always ask that. And you can still take a paper ballot or vote electronically. You still have those options.
You do.
It's absolutely the voter's choice. We have both available at every polling location.
Okay.
But it's absolutely up to the voter to choose. And the poll
And
workers
electronic is okay because we're not connected to the internet. That's what we want to emphasize is because that's a huge concern for folks.
It really is. And people should also understand that even if for some reason on a given day at a given polling place that there might be a problem with, say, the electricity, they can always vote a paper ballot.
Okay.
Because then it goes into a locked side compartment, and when everything is functioning again, then we can take those ballots out and run them through the scanner.
Great, because I mean, this is our democracy, and we should be able to do the right thing. So the judges that are there, is that different from a poll worker, or you usually have a Republican and a Democratic judge there?
Well, we do. So we have to have by law at least one Republican and one Democrat judge in every precinct.
Okay.
And at least one Republican and one Democrat poll manager for every polling place.
Okay, great.
And for the benefit of the listeners, we also have individuals we call technical specialists who are trained specifically on how to troubleshoot the machines, and they are not partisan.
Yes, because I've seen a lot of that happen.
Right.
But it was all good. But it all turned out really well. Gentlemen, we've got to have you all back within this 2020, getting, 2019 and moving up and getting folks ready for it. Thank you so much for coming on. Once you come back and just really get folks really assured that everything's going to be all right here.
We would love to, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We will be back with more information from some really good people, the League of Women Voters, and those who are in the community, activists from the Recorder of Deeds office, to talk more about how important it is for you to get out there and some history on the importance of voting.
Oh, have you seen that piece on the Tiffany neighborhood on STL TV?
No.
Let me show you.
My wife and I were looking for homes. We lived in the city all of her life, and there's just a different energy when you're in the city.
Keep up with what's happening in your neighborhood. Watch STL TV. Be in the know.
Visitors and residents love the St. Louis Zoo because it's free. There's a train, a carousel, opportunities to make new friends, and plenty of fun learning experiences with the animals 363 days a year. So come and experience St. Louis. The Missouri Botanical Garden is loved by green thumbs and non-gardening types alike because you can play. You can relax. And there's always something new to experience, no matter the time of day or the season. And learn about conservation and one-of-a-kind plants. So come and experience St. Louis.
And welcome back to City Corner. I'm Robin Boyce, and in the studios with me right now to talk further about getting out the vote in St. Louis is Ms. Robin Davis, who is Executive Assistant to the Recorder of Deeds for the City of St. Louis, and Ms. Nancy Miller, Co-President of the St. Louis League of Women Voters. Hello, ladies. How are you both? Hello. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us a little bit more about voting. How important, Nancy, is it for people to get out and vote? Within this next window, we're looking at 2020. It's a different egg that we're looking at out here with reference to knowledge base, people understanding voting. We are probably for the first time dealing with a huge baby boomer group of voters who have always been there for the voting and getting out and have showed some huge dynamics in the 20th century coming into 21st. Now we're dealing with Gen Xers, we're dealing with the millennials, we're dealing with the Zs. It's looking a little different now. How important?
How many words can I use?
Yeah.
It is just so important. One thing, when you were speaking, it reminded me, one of the things we do is work with youth in high schools.
Good.
And the youth vote in 2018, for the 18-year-olds to 25-year-olds, the percent of young people in that age group who voted surpassed the number of baby boomers who voted.
I didn't know that.
That came out of the studies that they did, yes.
Okay.
After that election. And that's just phenomenal.
Wow, so that group didn't get out in 16, but they came out in 18.
Exactly, and when you talk to high school kids and say, your vote really does count. But you have to vote, you have to register, and that's one of the things. There's several groups in St. Louis registering high school students, and we have a team out. They usually do 2 or 3 a week.
Great.
So it's
great. And
it's
they're
exciting.
Getting out and they're getting kids registered and they're educating them about what's going on. Robin, you were very much involved with the campaign with Mr. Butler, Recorder of Deeds. We talked a lot one-on-one about the importance of young people understanding why they need to vote. And we'll get back to history with reference to voting in just a minute, Nancy. But the passion that you dealt with during that election, what was that like for you to try to get people to understand once you register, you need to get to that poll?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I noticed was that individuals after registering, they failed to show up at the poll. We couldn't understand, why is that? Why are we standing at the poll on election day and there's this void of individuals coming to vote? Some of the reasons that I've heard is that, none of this reflects my views.
Okay.
I don't think my vote is important.
They didn't feel like they were being felt or anyone was listening to them?
Correct. And so my question is, so if we are going to protest and if we have voices in the street, why are we not showing up at the poll? And why are we only focusing on the election days that's concerned the President of the United States?
Yeah.
Because your vote is so much more important than that. Not that that's not important,
but
it's
local level,
a closer issue than what goes on in Washington.
Yeah.
Because what we do here in the community reflects what goes on in Washington.
Exactly, because we elect those congressmen, we elect those U.S. senators, those individuals who go to Washington, D.C. to try to make a difference for us.
Absolutely.
Give us some history, Nancy, with reference to when did the opportunity for women to vote happen in this country?
finally,
Yeah,
1920.
1920.
Next year's our 100th anniversary of women's
For women to
suffrage.
vote. And for African Americans?
African Americans legally were allowed to vote then, but it took longer for local, well, remember poll taxes, you've heard about that.
Yeah.
Those things were instituted in many states which kept black women and black men from voting.
Right.
Until those were finally outlawed, and unfortunately that wasn't until the 1940s.
1940s.
So it all depended on where you lived.
And things changed in 1965, though.
Well, they did, and then they were further with Voting Rights Act, and then things were added to that to be more specific because they'd found some get-arounds, some of the states had, in the 90s, in 1993.
And with that alone, just knowing since just 1965, that's nowhere, folks were not able to vote. And so when we look at circa today and the things that are going on right now with reference to the community and what's happening with the state, what's happening with the nation, how do we then, because I know you all have, the League of Women Voters have something coming up really soon that's going to help to make a difference to get folks out to vote. Tell us a little bit more about getting folks educated and interested and helping to instill that passion.
Well, we have a couple things we do. When we register people, we have a card that says it's Get Out the Vote. And if they fill out the card, they don't have to put their name on it, but they give us either an email address or a text, and then we send them automatically reminders before elections. It's like 3 weeks to the
Very
election,
good.
have you done your research? Or, you know, the election's next week, do you have plans, do you have a way to get there, that kind of thing. So we're doing that to get out the vote. We're trying to get as many presentations as we can to groups about how this will impact them. For the municipal elections, we have a presentation about all the things that the people on the municipal Board of Aldermen, what they control in the city. Do you have a place in your neighborhood? Do you have a park? Does somebody take care of it?
Right.
How late does it stay open? Who all the Board of Aldermen select and elect and control within the city? All that information to get to people that it does affect my everyday life.
Right.
So that they understand, like we were just talking about, it isn't just presidential election.
No.
And then all the things at the state level, all the decisions they make that control things we do every day and how important those are. It's continuous education. The voter's guide comes out in the Post-Dispatch and all the libraries the weekend before the election. Now, this year it won't because there's nothing.
Right, there's nothing
The whole
going on
state,
in this
yeah.
this particular cycle except for some special elections.
Right, that'll start again next March with the municipal, the local elections.
Right, okay, so you have an event coming up pretty soon
We
that you all are
do.
doing. What's going on?
We have voter registration at all the libraries in 5 counties, St. Louis City, St. Louis County, Jefferson County, St. Charles County, and Warren County, where we are registering voters at all the libraries, not all, most. I think
Yes.
it's up to 57 now that
That's
we're going to
excellent
be
though,
at
but
that
that's
day.
a lot of libraries with people, because people hang out at libraries. I mean, that's their place, or that's a go-to place. So this is a go-to place to get registered.
Right, and it's on the 28th of September, the last
that's-
Saturday in September.
So that's a big push to get
push.
folks registered. So after we get them registered, the education, how do we, as citizens, get folks educated about the issues? Because we have a lot of issues on the ballot sometimes, a lot of different candidates. I guess the election that comes to mind was the last mayoral election. How does a citizen get through 11 some odd candidates in one election for one party? How do you do that successfully?
Well, many communities have the candidate forums, and I know the city had several for mayor that were, I would encourage people to go to those wherever they are. You learn so much at those, and then the issues, you can call us and we'll help you with the issues, but we don't do
So for
candidates
the issues,
or parties.
Okay, so the issues that are on the ballot, for example, there were a lot of issues, I believe, was that 18? There was a bunch of issues on the ballot
there were.
with reference to
Things like
marijuana laws and all that. So you all help.
We do. We have
Explain that for
presentations,
folks.
we have handouts, we have PowerPoints. You know, however we can help you understand, get the information out. People come in and get 200 flyers on those to take to church or wherever. We had a lot of, thousands and thousands of things we produce.
And with reference to the passion that you have for voters and folks getting out of education, what are you all doing now? I know Mr. Butler wants to do some things with reference to getting the millennials, the young folks, really busy.
Right. And so there are a number of incentives and actions that are going on to garner the attention of the individuals who are active in the street, who are concerned. Those individuals, while they may know about the issues, they may not know how it really impacts them because they're looking at how it affects them personally instead of from a community standpoint. Right. And so at least for myself, I will be working with the League of Women Voters to get the word out. And then also there's some collaboration with some churches to get not only the registration, but to get the education out. The education leads to the vote. And I really believe that the conversation and the narrative has to happen to understand why it is that people feel they don't need to be engaged.
Right, and that's the important thing, especially with churches, at community centers, different places where people gather. It's so important for folks to continue the talk. Yes, Nancy?
Right, I think before 18 election, I know Louise and I, at one church, we did 4 presentations in a morning before services.
That's Louise
Wilkerson. I'm sorry, my co-president.
I know.
Sorry,
really nice lady. She's been here to STL TV on several occasions as well. But you all get out and do it.
We were at a number of churches, and people say, well, I think they don't call us because it's a Sunday, and well, I can miss my church service on Sunday, one Sunday, to go to somebody else's and be there to give information.
Well, biblically, there's no problem with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And I think that a lot is what folks need to get over.
Well, they just do.
They don't understand. It's okay.
And we're happy to do that. We're really happy to provide that.
Good. So you're available to come into churches and talk with people and get that discussion going and register people there at the church?
Sure. I think we have 10 speakers right now, and we have over 150 voter registration people.
Really?
Oh yeah, we have at least 6 events a week in the city and the county.
Great. So there's help out there to really get folks interested. You mentioned, Robin, earlier, folks are getting out and protesting against certain issues that are going on in the community. The next step after protest is voting, would you say?
Well, let's make sure you're on the rolls to vote.
Okay.
Let's make sure you're registered.
Okay, getting that person registered after protest.
Let's learn what the issues really are. Let's learn what the measure will be, how the measure impacts. Let's have the conversation, and then let's march to vote.
Ladies, I'm going to have you all back because this is going to be a big window here for 2020, and we need to continue to talk about it. As I talk with the St. Louis Board of Elections Commission, we want to, as St. Louisans, make sure we get the vote out. And I thank you so much for coming on the show today. I told you it was going to go fast, but I want to thank you so much for coming on so we can continue to talk about the vote. Hi, I'm Robin Boyce for City Corner. See you next time.